promising a video on more grammar. So we are going to do some grammar today. We're going to look at appositives. We're going to look at phrases. My phrases lessons usually take quite a bit to teach because they lead into a very specific grammar lesson later on. That sounds all really weird, but we're gonna look at phrases today. We're gonna look at appositives. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about some other stuff too. First of all, I did buy a new camera. Yes. So I will be making a little bit more elaborate videos. I just bought the camera yesterday, so I haven't really played around with it too much. It's got a microphone and all that cool stuff on it. It's 4K, so I'll raise the resolution. You'll see me even closer. Anyway, I'll be able to move away from just this one little set here. This is my teaching set where I usually teach my classes. You know, I have a really outdated poster of Powering Path, and then of course my degrees and stuff. But anyway, the point is that I'll be moving around a little bit more, maybe even put some music in and stuff. I'll be increasing my production value quite a bit in the future, in future videos. But, you know, it's been 2 weeks since I've released a video, and it's been even longer than that since I've done a grammar video. So those of you who have joined this channel for the grammar lessons, I've been kind of neglecting you, sorry. Those of you who have joined it because of my books, you know, they kind of go hand in hand. This channel is meant for authors and readers. The authors, you should be able to see the grammar, and you know, you don't have to be an author to learn the grammar part of the class. I mean, of the videos of the show, or whatever you want to call this. But you know, you could just be someone who's wanting to polish up on them or remember, or maybe you write something else, or maybe you have a student in school that needs some brushing up on some of the grammar. That's fine. That's okay. But you know, the whole idea of this channel is supposed to be author tube somewhat, where we talk about my books, and hopefully I have some people here that are actually into my books and into reading my books. And then the other part of it is, you know, instead of giving author advice, just kind of reminding you guys, I'm not really giving author advice because there's a lot of channels out there in the author tube world that gives you advice on self-publishing and traditional publishing and how to do this, or 10 things that you shouldn't do when you publish and things like that. And that's not really what I do. I do stuff like, hey, do you remember how to do grammar? You don't? Well, here you go. Here's a video on this grammar from an actual teacher who's actually taught it before. And so hopefully I'm helping you out in that way, for those of you who are authors or wanting to, you know, improve your writing in some way. The other section of the channel is based on, you know, my own writing, and there's a couple of things I want to talk about on that. And the thing that I want to talk about most is that when there's a really big, huge difference between the writing, the creative side, and the analytical, you know, editor, grammar side. I can actually do really well looking at other people's work and determining whether or not it's grammatically correct, or if it needs improvement, or things like that. But I have a hard time looking at my own work and doing the same thing, because I've written my own work, and it takes a little bit more effort. You know, it has to go through an editor and stuff. And I've spoke about this before in my other videos, but I just wanted to reiterate that you're not the best judge of your own work in any way, shape, or form, because your brain wants to help you, and it lets you see what you think you wrote as opposed to what you actually wrote. So one of the best tools that I could recommend for those of you who are self-editing would be to listen to your work read back to you in some way. Microsoft Word and some other programs will have a little section where you click on a button and it'll read it back to you. Yes, it's a computer voice. Yes, it sounds, you know, very stiff and whatever, because it's very electronic. However, it doesn't skip words, and it doesn't read stuff that's not there, like your brain makes you do sometimes. Instead, what it does is it will read every single word. If you have a double word, it will read the double word. If you skipped a word, like an article like a or an or the, it's going to not put that in there, you know, where you would see it in your own writing. The AI from Word or whatever that's reading it back to you is not going to read it if it's not there. And so that's the best way that you can actually self-edit, is to have it read back to you. And it is tedious. It does take some time. because it's reading in real time. And believe it or not, the computer reads it slower than you read it probably. Even if you're a slow reader, it's still pretty slow, but it's very accurate. So if you publish your work on Google Partners, they actually have an audiobook feature there that, and it's probably one of the better readers that reads it back to you. You can actually make an audiobook with it. It's all electronic, but you can actually edit it to where, it doesn't do the stiff, mechanical stuff that a lot of the other AI readers do, like Word and things back to you. Like you can add a pause where the reader wouldn't pause. Like if it's reading back to you and it says, "This is the story of the," and it does something like that. You can have it pause and say, "This is the story of the," you can actually put a pause in there and make it sound more realistic and stuff like that if you want to take the time to do that. I have not taken the time to do that yet. However, I might do it in the future. But so I just wanted to say that because a lot of times I get, a little bit of feedback, and different people that review my work said, "Hey, you're in, creative writing teacher or grammar teacher, and I don't really like your writing." Well, that's your prerogative. You don't have to like my writing. I do have my own specific style that I like. I tend not to add a ton of description, and the reason why I do that, my work it tends to be more dialogue based. A lot of things that are seen in the world building phase is seen through the eyes of characters. And the reason why I do it that way is not because I'm too lazy to put description. It's because once you describe something, in great detail, then that's the way it looks. And I like to leave a little bit of that up to the reader's imagination, so that I like to think that every person that picks up, like, say, Red Mage, for example, and they're reading it, I like to think all of them see the things that I've written in there slightly different, like the way she uses blood magic. When I describe the magic with the blood magic, I like to think that everyone has a different view of that based on their own imagination or what they've seen in their own experiences, rather than explain it to the exact, letter, exactly what it's like, and then that be canon. I like to leave it up to some of the reader's imagination. So my style is a little bit different in some respects. In other respects, it's not. But I keep my teaching self and my writing self separate. Let's just put it that way. I can look at work, and I can look at essays, and I can look at academic work. I can look at creative writing, and I can assess it just fine, separate from my own work. If I'm away from my work for a long period of time and I don't remember what I wrote, when I see it again, then I can kind of be more objective with it than I can otherwise. I just realized there's a reflection in the Howling Path. It's because the way my camera's sitting, my chair has lost its gas cylinder, so I'm sitting all the way on as low as it'll go, and so I had to angle the camera lower, so to make myself in the frame, so it's reflecting back. You can see all my screens and everything. I have all these multiple screens. Anyway, so let's get into the lesson today. This is participles. So there are 3 verbals. Let me go ahead and share the screen here, and I don't know why I'm showing sound. There's no sound, but we'll go ahead and share the screen here. So appositives. Most people don't know what the word appositive means. An appositive is just a word or a phrase that describes or re-identifies or renames or explains a noun or pronoun. So the whole reason to make appositives is because when you first learn how to write, when you're 3rd, 4th grade, 2nd grade, whenever you first learn how to put pen to paper or pencil to paper, you tend to write in short, choppy sentences because that's how we're taught. You read that first reader, and it's like, "See Pug run, see Spot and Jane run with Pug." I remember those readers from way back then. All right, we're taught to read that way because it's easier. It's easier to pick it out that way. So when you write, you tend to write, "I went on vacation last week. Last week was a great vacation. We went to Hawaii. Hawaii is an island," and you tend to write like that, especially when you do reports when you're, early on in your academic career. Well, when you get into junior high, later junior high, in high school, you want to write more sophisticated. You should, by that time, have written enough where you can improve. And then when you get to college, you even want to improve more because you want to impress the professors and make B's and A's, preferably, right? You don't want to end up C's. And some people are really jarred when they get to college where everything is an essay. You have essays in government, English, history, science, psychology. All of those classes have essays, and it's basically all essay. A lot of the tests are essay-based tests. The only one that I haven't seen in college that's too much doesn't have an essay is probably math. But even those classes, I've seen essays where they've done reports on like Pythagoras. Is that how it's pronounced? Pythagorean theorem. Anyway, Archimedes or somebody. They had to write an essay on some ancient mathematician or something along those lines, or where's modern math going, and things like that. So I've even seen it in math classes, although it's more rare. So people get to college and then they think, okay, well, I did really well in high school. I made A's and B's, and then they get to college and they make C's on their essays. And they're like, okay, why did I make these C's? Well, part of it's because you're still writing as if you're in junior high and high school, and you haven't graduated to that college level of academic writing yet. And that's where things like appositives and participles, which will be coming up later, not today, but in another later class, that's where positives come into the forefront, because what appositives allow you to do is to take two sentences that might be short and choppy and make them into one sentence that sounds better and flows better and has a little bit more information or a little less information. Anyway, some students don't like appositives because it actually reduces your word count somewhat. So let's get into this because I don't want this video to be one of my long marathon videos. So appositive phrases, like I said, identifies, renames, or explains a noun or a pronoun. So it tells who a person is or what a thing is. So the example out here, and a lot of times you can tell with positives because they don't really affect the sentence. And what I mean by that is you can say Mr. Wilson donated 3 paintings to the local museum, and that sentence is fine that way. It is grammatically correct. So the appositive is being inserted in there with commas. Mr. Wilson, my next door neighbor, donated 3 paintings to the local museum. Okay, my next door neighbor is telling you who Mr. Wilson is. That's the renaming, or telling you who a person is or what a thing is. In this case, the person. So my next door neighbor is the person, Mr. Wilson, right? So this has commas, and the reason why it has commas is because that is what's called non-essential or non-restrictive information. And what that means is if you took this out, it would not affect the sentence. Mr. Wilson donated 3 paintings to the local museum would be fine without my next door neighbor. So it's merely kind of adding more information. And because of that reason, since it's not needed, it's not a non-essential, we put commas around it. All right, so the next one, my sister Debbie has 2 grandchildren, and there's in parentheses here, it says that I have more than one sister. All right, so this still makes sense without Debbie in it. My sister has 2 grandchildren, but the reason why Debbie doesn't have commas around her name is because there's more than one sister. So you have to name which sister you're talking about that has the 2 grandchildren. Because of that reason, this is essential or restrictive information. It's essential because we have to know which sister you're talking about. All right, so my sister Debbie, so there's no commas. So if you do need the information in the appositive, you don't need commas. If you don't need the information in the appositive, you do need commas. And it almost sounds backwards, but that's the rule. When I do have essay classes and I grade essays, that's the #1 thing that I have to deal with is the comma usage. And I think I've mentioned that before too in this if you've watched like my earlier videos on commas, then you know that I've mentioned that before, that when I grade papers, comma usage is probably the #1 issue that I come across that I take off the most points for. It's because people don't know how to do them very well. And using appositives will help you learn other things like using commas. All right, the next one, the tragedy Romeo and Juliet, is typically studied by freshmen. Again, there's a lot of Romeo and Juliet's telling you which tragedy we're talking about. There are a lot of tragedies, not only just Shakespearean tragedies, but others like Christopher Marlowe and other writers. But let's just say it's all Shakespeare. Well, there's Othello, there's Macbeth, there's other tragedies besides Romeo and Juliet. So we have to name which tragedy we're talking about. Therefore, there's no commas. We need the information. It's restrictive or essential. All right, non-essential information. John's sister Mary has one grandchild. John only has one sister. So if he's talking about his sister, he says John's sister has one grandchild, we know it's going to be Mary because he only has one sister. So because of that information that we know that he only has one sister, then Mary is non-essential. So we put commas around it. All right. Same thing with husband or wife. If we say Jane's husband is an engineer, it's going to be Don because that's her husband, right? If you know the person named Jane and you know Jane and Don and you realize that they're married, whenever Jane is talking about her husband, more than likely, unless she's a polygamist, it's going to be John, right? I mean, Don, I said John, I'm sorry, Jane and Don. If she talks about her husband, it's going to be Don, therefore it's non-essential. Now, if she had more than one husband, then you'd have to name which one. It would be essential and there would be no commas. All right, the school committee, a group of students and parents plan the spring dance. A group of students and parents are telling you who the committee is, but it's non-essential because we don't really care, I guess. Anyway, the school committee planned the spring dance. Most of us know what a committee is, so this is just adding information or non-restrictive, non-essential. This one, there's only one main character. So Mrs. Strangeworth, the main character, seems to live a gracious life. Okay. If we've read this book, we know that Mrs. Strangeworth is the main character, therefore it's non-restrictive. All right. So positive renames or tells you about the noun next to it. It's usually right next to it. If you put the appositive anywhere else in the sentence, it's not right next to the noun that it's renaming or replacing. No, it's not really replacing it. The one it's renaming or that it's describing or that it's explaining, then it gets confusing. So you want to put it right next to the noun that it's explaining. So this one, my next door neighbor is explaining Mr. Wilson. David is explaining sister. Romeo and Juliet is explaining tragedy. Mary is also explaining the sister. Dawn is explaining who the husband is. A group of students and parents is telling you who the committee is. And the main character is telling you who much Strangeworth is. All right. So all these are right next to it. All right. So I've already mentioned the rule. Essential and restrictive means that the information is needed, therefore no commas. If it's non-essential or non-restrictive, then it's not needed in the sentence. You can take it out and it still makes sense. Then it's non-restrictive, non-essential, so you'd put commas around it. All right. So I've already mentioned this. In other words, if you don't need the information in the appositive, you do need commas. If you do need the information in the appositive, you don't need commas, etc. I know that sounds kind of backwards, but just remember this because it's important. When you're writing, this really helps too. Those of you who are authors and you're writing, this really helps you understand when you have positives and participles, which we'll get to later in this on this channel. It really helps you understand where to put those commas, especially if you do self-editing before you send to an editor, or those of you who self-edit completely. I don't know very many people that actually do that anymore because editing is difficult and it's a whole different process than writing. So most of the time, people hand this off to someone who specializes in editing, which is what you should do. Self-editing, I've done it many times. It is possible, very possible, but you're going to have to take a lot of time away from time you could be writing to do the editing. So it's better, in my opinion, to have an editor that you can take your completed manuscript and send off to the editor, and then you can just continue to write, start on the next book or start on the next thing you want to work on while that's being edited. And that way you don't have to worry about, because it takes me, when I self-edit, it takes me almost the same amount of time to edit a book that it did to write it. It's very difficult, especially if I want to edit it correctly and make it where it's, there's absolutely no mistakes in there, especially if I'm just self-editing. It takes a long time, it takes a lot of effort. So it's good to be able to send it. We're lucky that we're able to send it to these freelance editors and have them work on it while we're writing something else. But you should go and self-edit somewhat before you ever send it to an editor. It should be as polished as you can get it before you send it to an editor. Okay, so here's a worksheet. We're going to look at some of these. All right. So let's look at, it says underline the appositive or positive phrase. Place commas where they are needed in the following sentences. We're going to do this, and then we're going to do combining phrases. I'm sorry, combining sentences. Here in a moment, I'm going to show you how that works so that you can make your writing sound more sophisticated. All right, Tom's wife, Molly, decided to go back to college for a teaching degree. Okay, the way this would work, it's very simple. I'll do all these. All right, we know that his wife, Molly, is probably his only wife. So it'd be his wife, Molly, and put commas around Molly, decide to go back to college for a teaching degree. Okay, very simple. The television show Under the Dome is one of my favorites. This would not have commas because there are a lot of shows, right? So Under the Dome is the appositive. Oh, I forgot to underline it. Is the appositive, but you would not have commas because there's thousands of shows. Therefore, we need to name it. It's essential information. Okay, Harvey Coleman, a famous magician. A famous magician is the appositive, and it would have commas because it's non-essential information. All right. If you're thinking about this when you're thinking, well, it's essential because we need to know who Harvey Coleman is. Well, it's like David Copperfield or something like that. Or Harry Houdini is a famous magician. It's supposed to be known, so therefore it's non-essential. All right, I am doing a project about anatomy, the study of the structure of one's body. Okay, in this case, the positive is just the sentence or the part after that. Most people know what anatomy is. So this is just telling you what anatomy is. It's non-essential, therefore it'd have a comma. Same here. The chef prepared a pita, a Mediterranean sandwich. All right, a Mediterranean sandwich is just describing what a pita is, and most people know. So wait, prepared a pita, yeah, Mediterranean sandwich. That is the appositive. All right. So last little thing that we're going to look at are the positives very quickly because, like I said, I don't want to make this video super long like I normally do. Is I want to show you how to combine sentences into one sentences with a positive or positive phrase. This is where you turn your short, choppy sentences into, sophisticated sentences. Okay, so let's imagine that you're in 4th grade and you're doing a report on your family member and that you've chosen your brother. So you're saying, my brother graduated from Baylor University. Ben is my brother. Baylor University is an excellent school. See how that would be like 4th grade writing or something, or 3rd grade or 2nd grade. The way you do this in high school or in college is you would say, my brother Ben graduated from Baylor University, an excellent school. So my brother and then Ben graduated from Baylor University, an excellent school. Okay. So my brother Ben, it says he has 2 brothers, so we're telling which brother we're talking about. There wouldn't be a comma around Ben. Graduated from Baylor University, and then you would put a comma there, an excellent school, because an excellent school is just adding information. It's not essential. So it'd be my brother Ben, graduated from Baylor University, comma, an excellent school. Okay, no comma around Ben. All right, the next one, the quarterback scrambled for a touchdown and won the game. The quarterback is Damon Timms. Okay, there's only one quarterback in this case. So the quarterback, Damon Timms, scrambled for a touchdown and won the game. Simple as that. Or you could say Damon Timms, the quarterback, scrambled for a touchdown and won the game. Okay, if you say Damon Timms first, you would have commas around the quarterback because presumably you'd know that was the quarterback. So it's not essential. But if you say the quarterback, Damon Timms, that's also non-essential because there's only one quarterback. So there's commas regardless. So Damon Timms, comma, the quarterback, or you could say the quarterback, comma, Damon Timms, comma, scrambled because there's only one quarterback. It's not essential. If you're talking about the quarterback, it's going to be Damon Timms, right? All right, this one, William Shakespeare wrote many plays that are still performed and studied today. He is a famous author. You could say the famous author, William Shakespeare, wrote many plays that are still performed today. William Shakespeare will be essential because there's many authors. Or you could say William Shakespeare, a famous author, wrote many plays that are still performed and studied today. All right, if you did it that way, most people know that William Shakespeare was an author. Therefore, you would put commas around a famous author in that case because it's non-essential. Because you could just say William Shakespeare wrote many plays that are still performed today. So if you put a famous author or the famous author, William Shakespeare, you would not have commas. If you put William Shakespeare, the famous author, a famous author, you would have commas around a famous author. I hope you understand. I hope that's clear. All right, and finally, I chose dark green for the shutters on the house. Dark green is my favorite color. Okay, that's the short, choppy version. To combine this, you could say I chose dark green, my favorite color, for the shutters on the house. Or you could say I chose my favorite color, dark green, for the shutters on the house. Okay. You could say I chose my favorite color, dark green, in the would that be essential or non-essential? I'm going to leave it up to you to figure that one out. You can put down in the comments. Okay, so let's read this again since I'm going to have you do it instead of me. So I chose dark green for the shutters on the house. Dark green is my favorite color. All right, if you said I chose my favorite color, dark green, for the shutters in the house, would my favorite color have commas around it? Is it essential or non-essential? Put it in the comments. If you write it like this, my favorite color, I'll say I chose dark green, my favorite color, for the shutters on the house, would my favorite color have commas in that instance? You can put down in the chat. Not the chat, you know what I'm saying? The comments. I want to see if you guys can get that. All right, so I'm not going to tell you the answer to that yet, because I want to see what you say. All right, so the other thing about phrases that we're going to get into next time is participial phrases, which is a another one of the verbals like gerunds and infinitives. Participles act like adjectives. They look like verbs. They act like adjectives, like shattered tiles. You know, I need to replace the shattered tiles. Okay, shattered looks like a verb, but it's actually modifying tiles. It's telling you what the tiles are like. But anyway, we'll do that next time. I want to kind of end this here. So let me know if you have any questions about appositives. I'm anxious to kind of see what you guys do with number 4 here. If you can actually tell me what that is or not essential. What I'll do is I'll comment, I'll look at it, and then I'll tell you the answer in the comments. Like whatever you put down, I'll leave a message and say yes or no, and explain why. Anyway, so let me know if you have any questions about appositives. Next time we're going to do, like I said, participles. We're going to get down to that and participial phrases. Hopefully this will help you learn a little bit more about commas. If you did watch my video on commas a while back, I did kind of go over this a little bit, but I just went over it in a little more detail now. It doesn't hurt to revisit it every once in a while anyway. So, okay, that's it for today. Let me go ahead and stop sharing. I don't think I have any more news or anything. That's pretty much it. So I will see you next time. Next time we'll probably be working. I'll probably talk about my books. I've got a book, Gray Mage, that's coming out pretty soon, and I'll probably talk about that and how it's coming along and all that. It's coming along fine. Other than that, I will see you next time. Thank you very much.